Maybe I think this is a good, a good point to start, actually. Yes, I'm welcoming you all to today's talk by Estethica, the new format on Berlin Fashion Week, highlighting topics of change and vision, innovation, and inclusivity within the fashion industry. I'm Manuel Almeida Vergara. I'm style editor at Berliner Zeitung. And I'm going to be your host today. I have to look into my notes a lot because there are a lot of topics that we want to talk about. I hope you're going to forgive me for that. Innovation, new luxury, and sustainability. This is the headline of our talk today and the things that we want to talk about. And I'm thinking it's also topics that all of us have talked and thought about a lot in the last couple of years. And that's, to me at least, has not always been easy, because working in a digitalized, technologized, highly capital-driven global industry, we had to let go of beliefs and standards that we all had perceived as given for many, many years. Also, I think it's not always been easy to stay hopeful due to the sheer fact that sustainability or sustainable fashion up to this point is still a niche within mass manufacturers that are pushing our planet to the limits. And it's not always been easy, also I think, to realize that indeed we are all in this together. So togetherness and cooperation, how important are these things to create a future that is worth living for? How can small ideas turn into big movements? How can we maybe take a step back and return to sustainable techniques and traditions without losing the advantages of technology and digitalization? This is what I will ask my guests about before we have a couple of minutes as well to take in questions by you, our audience. But first, let me introduce who's on stage with me today. Co-founding the global campaign Fashion Revolution in 2013, which is active in more than 100 countries around the world, with the goal to lead the industry into a more healthy, responsible future. Hers has become a household name in sustainability and fashion activism, fields that she devoted herself long before, be it as the designer of her own upcycling brand From Somewhere, or as the co-founder of the British Fashion Council initiative Estethica, which is our host today. I'm happy to welcome the fashion activist and lecturer at University of the Arts London, as well as Central St. Martin's, Orsola de Castro. A focus on the intersection between visual and haptic significance, creating images, objects, and spaces mainly inspired by natural as well as technical environments. This is how he describes the work of Acte TM, founded in 2018 in Berlin. This artist, studio, and creative direction gives advice to major brands such as Givenchy, Moncler, Off-White, and Prada. Our guest today, Sascha Huth.
Hello.
Looking at the unique one-of-a-kind pieces as well as the designs out of the ready-to-wear line by this South African-born and raised designer, one can hardly identify the cultural roots these fantastic garments are hailing from, as well as the times they could have possibly been made in, bringing together aesthetics of various African countries and traditions of Asian craftsmanship. Every piece of his brand, founded 2008 in South Africa, is handmade by only one person, himself, Sascha Chuene.
Dennis.
And last but certainly not least, this Kenyan-born and raised former model knows her way around the African fashion scene like no other. In 2013, she founded the platform FA 254, Fashion Africa 254, to support young designers and shed light on the creativity of a continent that has been ignored by the global fashion industry for way too long. Among many other things, her platform offers designers from Africa the opportunity to enter or to become visible on the German market by presenting their collections here at Berlin Fashion Week. Thank you very much for being here, Waridi, Schrobsdorff. And I would actually like to stick with you a bit, Waridi, to talk about your platform and the African fashion scene, because if I get it right, one idea of the platform is also to give designers access to the expertise of the established European or maybe Western industries. What I find interesting is actually to look at it the other way around. So what could designers and brands in Europe or in the Western world learn from the way designers in Africa are working in the context of sustainability and new luxury, of course?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. What would Europeans learn from Africans or vice versa? As far as Fashion Africa 254 is concerned, I'm based in Berlin, in Germany for many years. After getting in touch with the African designers in 2008, I realized there was a gap in the designers of know-how, and that's how the idea came up of FA254 to start to bridge the expertise from the German market or German platform to the African designers. Since I'm based in Germany, so the whole idea was to get experts from Germany and to give the skills to the designers. And the main aim for me, basically also to do the work and fill the gap, was the people. I invested in the people. I wanted also the designers, and at that time, 2013, 100, why should we have 100 designers, you know? And for me, it was important about curating these designers for them to understand, also being in Africa, that what does it make to be a designer? And in fashion, it's not just about a designer. There's a whole photographer, stylist, makeup. So how we can basically flower it up to dissect who is who. And in this way, also, I saw that the African designers basically, they're, let's say, ambitious to go into international market. And I was saying to them basically that, you know, first be international, locally, and the people will come to you. The most important thing is, what you're doing now, they're working already in a sustainable way. I mean, Africa has always been sustainable. So they work with the resources they have. And the artisan, their main aim is to support the people they're working with. Whichever designer you talk to, the first thing they'll tell you, I want to support my community, I want to work with the artisan. So they all work with not with big factories. They have work with, especially like, for example, in Ethiopia, all the designers, I just brought 5 designers actually during Fashion Week from Ethiopia, they all work with their weavers, and they all want to support and create jobs for their people. And that's basically, as far as sustainability is concerned, in Africa, it's there, it's always been there, and that's how thinking what should the European designers learn from Africa, basically let the Africans to continue what they've always been doing, and the Africans basically to see what they're doing is right and to continue what they're doing. And on the other hand, also looking at Africa now, globally also some brands are producing in Addis Ababa or Ethiopia, and I think that the sustainability that is happening in Africa should be not messed up with. You know, bringing stuff whereby we are still raw and we're still learning and we're still growing. So what to learn is from the other side. If I'm wrong, Dennis can add something. By the way, being South African designer, yeah, I mean, we learn from each other by seeing that also with the Africans to see that with the European market is now talking about sustainability, what they've been doing before, and this is basically is about returning to sender. All the designers is about using all what is being thrown in Africa from how do you say, the second hand. They're learning to see it as like the resources they can use, you know. Mm-hmm. In 2015, I brought two German designers to the panel talk in Kenya, Bobby Collade and Karen Jensen, who are well-known designers here in Germany. And when they went there and talked to the designers were like, the African designers were saying how much they don't have resources like them. And they were saying, you have so much resources there with you. I mean, I wish I was in Africa to work with all the resources you have. So, you know, we always want what the other one has. And basically, since they came back, the European designers, they've changed to 360 degrees from their work. Bobby Kalade went back 5 years ago to Uganda, and is basically, his label is called Return to Sender. And which is amazing because he saw actually what he can do there, and more as a designer than what here, as a German designer, they have a lot of, with their own young designers, have a lot of struggles. So we learn from each other's challenges and struggles.
But is it, I mean, as you describe it, it's something, sustainability is something that comes natural to a lot of designers you're working with, but is it also a niche in fashion that they're trying to fill deliberately? Is there a mindset that, okay, this is a way we can go and it's going to be support a global change?
Well, basically for the designers, it wasn't deliberate because they were working their way with what they have. So it's now, there is this niche to feel from the Western world, but not for them. For them, they continue with what they're doing and also believing what they're doing and having confidence. What they've been doing is what actually is part of changing the climate or the fashion industry to produce less. So let's work with our limitation and not to have mass production. So they're more confident in working the way they've always worked. So. If I'm wrong, I don't know.
No. Can I just add?
Yeah, please. Absolutely.
The difference is we, as African, we're already working from a back foot, right? So we don't quite have the resources, but we are well-resourced ourselves. We can make a good meal from a bad, I don't know, like whatever left over, you get a soulful meal, right? So goes for when it comes to our making clothes or being expression, like exposing ourselves. We use what we have. However, we don't work from our wants, we work from our needs. Meaning it's a luxury when you have everything, you can then want to have more. Then you're going for luxury. We work from the needs. We create businesses because we need to eat. We create businesses because we need to house our families, get our kids into schools and such and so forth, right? So nothing is left. Has always been that as a culture that we are well resourced. It's just ingrained. It's just built into our DNA, right? The only aspect of it is that we don't quite give two hoots about where the fabric when it comes to us because it's cheaper. The chemical makeup of the fabric we don't consider. We just consider how it's going to look aesthetically. We consider how it's going to make me feel and how quickly I could possibly even move it, right? Having lived in Berlin for 2 years now, I've now understood my ability to create. I have the luxury of time because now I can just hone into what I'm really good at and master that. Because there I was operating from a need. Now I'm operating from a want perspective. I'm deliberate about what I do. I'm deliberate. I have the luxury of time to create a coat that took me 3.5 weeks by hand, right? When it comes to sustainability, it's a moving target. We haven't quite pinpointed, like, what are we actually using? What are we supposed, how do we really define it, per se? Like, what exactly is it? All I know from my point is I need to use natural fibers. I need to dispose of fabric less, like reuse every single piece. Like, for example, I'm not wearing the right one. Oops. But I attach meaning to everything. I don't just dispose of anything, right? So the culture of Africa when it comes to fashion will always be on the back foot, but there's so much so much diversity, so much creativity. Berlin, I find it rather on the other side, like this freedom, so much freedom that people forget about the intent, the reason why they came here. They're too fixated about being around, being cool, the struggles that they've had from their individual countries that they're from, because now they exist as a stranger and as an individual, but the craft of what they really wanted to do, they don't do anymore.
I see.
Yeah.
But this, I mean, you described it a little bit, the highly sustainable way your own work, you're working yourself, you're doing all of your clothes handmade yourself here in Berlin, and I'm guessing you're selling to Berlin people a lot. But looking at these customers, is the process behind it, the way you're working, is that actually crucial for them, or is it about the look anyways? Are they interested really in the process behind it?
They are, but I guard against contact with them. I create from, my approach is more artistic, right? In the sense that I make what I know can afford me to have the lifestyle that I have, to pay my rent, to drive my car, to get to where I want to go, right? So I create pieces ready to wear that I put in shops. The ones that I'm emotionally attached to, these ones, nobody has a say in it. So I create those and I put them up. And if you have a price, the right price, but there's a lot of emotion that goes into it, I may sell it or I may not sell it, because I'm attached to it. The other part affords me really to be the artist, the true artist that I feel that I am. So I don't really consider whether they do understand. I do get in contact with some customers, like with the coat that I just recently made, or rather people that were at the show that looked at it and identified the elements that were there. Sashiko, which is a Japanese hand skill, right? Because I'm just in love with the technique. Like my influence, if it doesn't come across, is very Japanese, right? They're very deliberate. They take time in what they do, and this is something that I adopt as well in my approach for fashion, style, and communicating as well. I try to be more deliberate in what I say and what I do. Hopefully translate also in the garments that I make, the more artistic way, and attaching meaning to the clothing and not just making for the sense of making. For example, I wore this deliberately because I wanted to speak about it, this jacket. It was made, inspired by, what's this guy's name? George Floyd, right? George Floyd died, and there was this whole hullabaloo about Black Lives Matter, right? But there were other individuals that are black, that were shot, that were men, that would have never, we can't place their names or faces, right? So I made this jacket as a representation of that. Like the faceless men are these people. And then he died from a policeman kneeling on him over a period, I don't quite remember, but it was quite long that he just died. I put a monster on the back of I don't know if I should turn and show everybody.
Absolutely, you should.
So I put the monster on the back representing the police, the government, and the policemen, and how, just to put it all together, how that element to suppress the individual, to suppress all these people, right? The people that are supposed to protect you are just suppressing you down. So I attach a lot of meaning with creativity and creating. I don't just, yeah, it looks good. She'll like it. Yeah. Check it out there.
And it's all hand-stitched, I
It's
guess.
all handmade.
But this, I mean, I think we all read a lot of articles about the renaissance of handicrafts. This is kind of a hope that we're all having. People are investing more handwork into their stuff yet again. And to me, it always sounds a little bit like a beautiful, hopeful fairy tale a little bit. Do you think there really is a future for the renaissance of handicrafts? Are we all going in this direction soon?
If you individually curate what you take from the outside, if you make a deliberate choice that you're not going to just listen to anything, and you pay attention to what you want and not what you're being prescribed to have, you will acknowledge that you've been operating in inherited opinion, inherited behaviors. All these ideas are not yours. And if you can do that, then you will come to a realization that you want things that take longer, that you appreciate. And if that happens, then you'll see people like myself maybe getting center stage more. But until then, if we're just always going to be led by trending topics, lately is sustainability. For me, I still say it's a moving target, right? But everybody has jumped on the bandwagon on that. It's great. We all want to live together because we have a social contract to take care of each other, right? Once we also realize what we individually need, it's not just the fast life, not the fast things, not the quick things. It's the things that take time. The things that take time that you work for, you appreciate. If you can realize those elements, we will be in a better place. We will see handwork, craftsmanship come into the fold, right? The internet has exposed a lot of creators. Some of them you're like, what the are you doing? Right? And I'd be remiss if I don't mention that as a creative, I'm a bit jealous when I see their work being exposed a lot more, but I'm more obsessed with the craft and somebody of, in my judgment, caliber that is not dedicated to the craft is getting a bit more traction, right? But I do also recognize that I'm quickly able to dissociate, cut myself from the noise where you don't see me or hear from me. This is a challenge. It's the first time I'm speaking in public because I'm trying to get myself out there, right? And just leverage over the opportunity that it may get me. Because the longest time I've been playing the backseat. And go, okay, my work would speak for itself. Nope.
No, now here you are, right? I would actually ask that same question to you, Orsola, because you have a good overview on each and every topic that is related to sustainability. Can we actually really take a step back to handicrafts, to traditions, to slow fashion, taking more time in such a highly technologized and digitalized world?
Well, you said it at the very beginning. You said that what we can do is to look back and integrate crafts and skills from the past and update them with technology. I mean, where we are at now, of course, we see the duplicity of an industry that it's hell-bent on speed, and at the same time, the resurgence of craft as somehow an alternative to it. The way that we are, the place that we are now, I would say that patience is infinitely more revolutionary than speed. And so therefore, anybody that wants to be revolutionary is looking at time, as you were saying, Dennis, and is looking at, using one's hands, the culture that sits behind this creativity. At the end of the day, what is sustainability if not the mother of creativity? Both because of its limits, when we have to make do with something, and it's our brain and our hands that actually create something new from virtually nothing, but also in its infinite opportunities, which is the marriage of brains with technology, with strings, with, whatever it is that makes it what it is. So the problem is that we have placed sustainability, as you were saying at the start, as a niche. I've often been asked, is sustainability a trend? And my answer is always the same. Yeah, it's been trendy for billions of years, or we wouldn't be alive. So we're doing our utmost best to somehow trample on who we are and what we've been in order to become, I don't know what. But the answer for me lies in the core of us, and that's the core of us all, not the core of a few of us. And if we listen to the core of us all, then there is diversity, there is inclusion, there is originality, there is so many things to look at, so many things to explore. And if that isn't the most creative thing to do, I don't know what else is. So when we look at fashion now, we can only deduce that it's incredibly flat, incredibly stupid, incredibly ungenerous, but it's not been like this for so long. It's quite a short time that we've mass-produced, accelerated disposal. That's the trend. It hasn't been going on for so long. So it's in the power of every single one of us as creators, as people, as thinkers, to actually turn back the clock and marry that old-fashioned clock with all the rest of the things that we have learned. So I go back to what you said to start with. We look back, but we move forward.
Are there any, because as I said, you have a good overview about everything that's going on in sustainable fashion. Are there any projects for you that come to mind that are keeping a good balance between looking back and looking into the future as well?
Well, yeah, okay, I am a granny.
That's not what I wanted to say,
comes from age and wisdom. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so yes, and to me, really, upcycling is a world that we haven't explored anywhere near enough. I mean, I keep saying, if we had invested into upcycling a 1% of what we invested into chemical recycling, which we know hasn't really worked. We're still only reusing something like 1 or 2% of what we're throwing away. I think we would be really out there with amazing creative solutions for an environmental crisis. I mean, I may be biased because that's what I was when I was a designer, and I think if you visit the Estethica exhibition, which we have at the 2020-30 summit, you will see this insane creativity of reuse, and it's different for everybody. No, really, it's not a signature; it's a method, it's a technique that begs to be used by everybody differently. So that would be it. But circularity is a big word that we're using the wrong way. I mean, these days going to the hairdresser risks becoming a circular activity. But what we're doing with soil, what is happening in India, for instance, with the use of organic cotton or organic silk, when we are looking at the ground in which we walk on and use that as a form of innovation. A little bit ridiculous. Again, we've been doing it for thousands and thousands of years, but I think what matters is the fact that we are beginning to look outside of what's been the past 30, 40, 50 years of this increased speed. And I love the fact that it's never just one thing. I mean, we can all have our passions. We all have our strings that pull where we feel. So for me, it's upcycling. For somebody else, it's going to be mushroom leather. For somebody else, it is going to be the regeneration of the soil. And that's the beauty of what fashion can do. Because fashion ultimately is very individualistic. And, we follow our own, we dress the way that we want to appear. We dress like, Dennis, what you were saying, you can't depart from some of the clothes you made. I so understand that, that's completely logical to me. And it pulls at those strings. And so it's never really one thing. It's always several.
But in Berlin, I have the feeling that actually it is not only one thing, but what we've seen, or what I've seen in the last 2 days here at Berlin Fashion Week, actually is a lot of upcycling, no? It has been a big topic in the shows and exhibitions so far, don't you think?
Hasn't it always been for young designers? I mean, young designers are broke. I mean, they're not going to be able to go and buy, they might dream, oh, I really want that black satin, whatever, but they can't afford it. So they have to be creative and find something else. Being a designer is not about creating problems. It's about finding solutions. That's probably why I like upcycling. I don't like the name, actually. And when I started doing it, it wasn't called upcycling. It was just reusing. And we go back to what is sustainability. In this case, we're talking about efficiency. Zero waste is actually efficiency. It has no other word, except we live in a world which is completely inefficient, and therefore we have to put all these fancy names to these techniques when we could actually just look inside ourselves and think, oh, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. It's going to be cheaper, it's going to be easier to find, and it's going to be really tickling my imagination as a designer. That's why there's an awful lot of it.
You were just talking about that, and I would like to get Sascha into the conversation as well. You were talking about young designers being broke a lot of the times, and you are actually one that works with kind of both sides. You're working with international mega brands such as Givenchy and Prada, and you're working with possibly not broke, but younger, more fast-forward thinking brands here in Berlin as well. What do you think, which direction will real innovation in the field of sustainability come from in the near future? The massive, big brands that actually have the money and the power to really initiate big projects, or the younger, maybe more flexible and adventurous brands and designers?
I think the first thing I have to say, everyone should reduce himself again, also big brand, major brands, and it's also not about for sure it's about material, but also more about behavior. So the material is not the fault, it's more like sometimes the behavior of ourselves. I mean, the consumption is there, but maybe we have to reflect ourselves and think about if we need all that new stuff every 2 weeks or month. It's more about your own behavior.
So it's more about the customers, you're saying?
Yeah, and I mean, we're working with some major brands, but it's not our focus. I mean, and if we work for them, it's just in collaboration, so we don't just work for them. But all the processes we are giving, we try all the time to work sustainable. I mean, sustainable for sure, every second brief, or every brief, sustainability is one of the buzzwords. And the most time it's like a marketing trick. But all the process we are working with, we try to also, we have this installation in the front. Also, our exhibition system is made, for example, out of aluminium. We know aluminium is not like a biomaterial or something, but the usage is really really sustainable. For example, you can compromise the profile. It's easy to storage. You can use it's made of different profile heights. And you can build different modules, depends on the functionality you need. And that's the thing, brands want to express something for an exhibition, and the next exhibition, we need something new, okay, let's smash it. So, but it's more about the thinking, okay, we have this exhibition system, it's new now, and next time we're going to create a different shape out of it, and it's still there. That's also the thing. I mean, we're working a bit in fashion, but it's not our main field. So, but we try also in set design and film and photography, to work with the best resources. And also in set design, there's so much waste after production, and so I was a bit away from you.
Please go whatever direction you want to go to.
But the main thing I want to say, I think it's more about the behavior, because for me, for example, concrete. For me, it's more sustainable to use concrete for 50 years than a bag out of bio, I don't know which material, and you throw it every day away. So it also don't make sense. So you can say it's out of like mushrooms or something, but the way how you use it and how you interact with it, that's not sustainable. Mm-hmm. So it's more about your mindset. And I also want to say something to Dennis. You talked about the jacket, and for me it's more like an art piece, and for me it's also really important, everything you do, if it's furniture, a sculpture or something, for me it's really important to send a message with it, so it's like a medium of, to let somebody think about something, and I think that's more important than style at the end of the day. So, but there are different ways. I mean, there's the functionality, like the practical functionality, but there's also the emotional functionality. So, I mean, if you go to German art schools, you have the functionality, Bauhaus, etc. But then Memphis is coming from Italia. They're more like the emotional people. They're like the critical people. No, it's just the functional way. No, we are just the emotional way. But for me, also art, it's not design, but it has also like emotional function. If I look to a picture and it reflects something, for me, it's actually also design. I mean, because if I interacting afterwards because of the message, that's also a hard question for myself. Where's the balance? And I think that's also like the innovation, or that should be the innovation. Everything you do should send out maybe a message. or like trigger someone to act good in my way. So.
But does that also mean, because you're saying that obviously the behavior of each and every one of us, the customer behavior is the major thing that we have to think about. Does that mean that these creative fields that you were talking about, the design, also the communication, the advertising, becomes even more important in the future, because that's the way that we can actually have a communication with the customers?
I mean, they should. I mean, it's actually just a tool. But for sure, yeah. If the head of everything is thinking wrong, then everything underneath is like destroyed. Yeah. But yeah, it's. I mean, it's hard. I mean, for sure, if you start to producing your own things, we also talked about it before. If you start growing and I don't want to talk about brand's name, but if you bigger you are, for sure you can't say, okay, let's produce less. Yeah, but we have 2,000 employees. They have to pay the rents and everything. And, I mean, it's a huge circle, and for sure, at one point, the marketing is coming in and crashes everything. And also, I talked about what's first, the sustainability thought or designing something. I think you should first think about sustainability or your behavior and then start to design. But often the people start to designing and try to be sustainable.
I might have to crash for a second. Yes, these brands that produce an awful lot have millions of employees who are not paid a living wage. So that's the first thing that needs to be considered. Those are not good jobs that are being given. Those are exploitative jobs that are being given. So that needs to be considered, that potentially you produce half, but you pay your workers twice as much, and that would have an incredible impact on people and nature. Sorry, just had to put that. And actually our team in Germany, Fashion Revolution Germany, are part of a really incredible campaign, which is called Good Clothes, Fair Pay. And you can actually go and sign your name on that website and ensure that you ask that there is the due diligence and that supply chain workers and garment workers are paid a living wage. Brands, this is not an opportunity, this is a moral obligation.
But is that something, again, that question, is that something that maybe has to be translated a little bit more in the design as well? Or isn't sustainability actually starting with the design, because you want to produce something, or you want to design something that has a value visually? Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah?
They say in fashion that sustainability is 80% at the design table, but it's not true. Designers these days have very little roles. In fact, they're all at the mercy of marketeers, especially when we're talking about big brands. So of course, everything that Dennis does, his sustainability is stitched in every product, and many of the young designers that you see here. And I think Berlin is a really brilliant example. There's a lot of support. The Senate supports the fashion weeks, the designers. So there's a lot that can be done. But no, when it comes to these gigantified, enormous brands, the reality is that sustainability is undesigned by the people at the top tables, who are, at the end of the day, receiving way more in terms of profits than the actual people who make their clothes. So, it really is, it's a complicated topic. But again, if you go inside yourself, you will know that what makes sense is to know that the people that are making the clothes that you're wearing should be working in dignity, because otherwise you are wearing other people's misery. And I don't think, if you really want to look, we use the term fabric of society, to describe where we live. We are drenched in the clothes that we wear. What do you want to wear? I personally want to wear something that is old, that is loved, that it's kept, that it's shared. But if I do buy something new, I want to absolutely know that all of the hands that touched the cloth that sits right next to my skin, are happy hands, are satisfied hands, are hands that can feed their children, can provide for medical care, have a decent, dignified job that they go to. That's what I want to wear.
Mm-hmm. I have the feeling a little bit that sometimes, due to the fact that we all have to think about the process a little bit more and about the horrific things that we are hearing about the fashion industry all in all, that it takes the fun out of it a little bit. Would you agree? Or is it, I mean, how can we still have a sustainable mind but still have really fun with clothes and just...
There's nothing more fun than to actually recuperate what you've got, share with your best friend, send a message with each other on TikTok or WhatsApp saying, look, I've got this, do you want it? I'll wear it this way, you'll wear it that way. I mean, the point is that if you know, it's like the word sexy, yeah? I mean, you know, fashion has to be sexy. Sexy sells. Sexy post-Weinstein? I mean, do we want to re-talk about that term? What is sexy? What is sexy for women who are wearing clothes? And it's the same with fun a little bit, you know. Is it fun to actually be walking straight into a massive environmental and social crisis? It doesn't mean that you have to take away the enjoyment of wearing clothes, but responsibility has to be seen in a different way. And, you know, unfortunately, these are not the funnest of times. And I say this as the mother of 4 children and grandmother of 2. And it is really, really sad when you see 19-year-old girls making a pact with each other that they will not have children because they're scared for their future. That's not fun to witness. So I really don't want to be the advocate of doom and gloom. This is why I talk about fashion in a really emotional way, because I believe that, yes, there's an enormous amount of glory in wearing clothes in a different way. We had great fun yesterday at the exhibition opening and putting it up and you know, talking to each other. So you're not removing that element completely. You are just deciding what kind of fun are you going to have?
Mm-hmm. What do you think about this, Dennis? Because you're a designer working in these strange and frightening times today. Do you sometimes think, I'd rather have worked in the 80s where nobody really was thinking about anything else but glittery outfits?
No, this is perfect timing for me because everybody else, everybody else is too fixated on who's doing what, who's doing this, who's doing that. So I'm just simply cutting myself off and getting myself ready because the world is overcorrecting right now, right? There are opportunities for us to actually look at where we can fit in or in the overcorrection. Mine is identifying when everybody has gotten together that we need to live harmoniously in a sustainable environment. They're going to start searching for the right products, the ones that mean something, the ones that attach emotion, meaning, it's deliberate. Then I will be the outlier in that aspect, right? So I'm still building and mastering my craft until that point happens. I'm hopeful, but I'm just not going to hold on to hope. I have to sell myself. I have to be out there more and more and more. But also when it comes to sustainability and upcycling, we have to guard against this hipster or like when you upcycle something, it's just the homeless aesthetic that I've seen on TikTok. Like, no, dude, nobody wants to wear that. You know, you have to make it, attractive. You need, the reason why big brands sell so much, they make it look attractive. They make it look aspirational. They talk to your core, they talk to what you want to buy, right? When I grew up in South Africa, my mentality was, all right, I'm gonna buy a house. I'm gonna buy the smashy, the prim car, right? Now I live in Germany. I had not fulfilled the dreams that I wanted then. I had a lovely apartment still, but I'm like, everybody is on bicycles and stuff. No, I'm not subscribing to this lifestyle because I still haven't attained the things that I wanted to do then. So I bought myself a car, right? There is a a sold idea of what success and an ambition is, and these are done in visuals, in a beautiful way. What we then as sustainable creatives or upcycling creative designers need to start not, because we're playing to the little league rule, and that's just not going to work. We can't just participate, you know? Like Kenyan people, if you're in a marathon with them, you're losing. You are definitely losing.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's a fact.
What do you say about that?
Well,
And I can just quickly add, you are losing, but because they know their craft, they're really good at it. What we need to also start doing is compete, not just show up and get the medal of participation. Berlin Fashion Week, Paris Fashion Week, by far, very different. When I think about the identity of Berlin Fashion Week, I'm like, you know what I mean? We gotta be realistic. I don't want to sit here and pontificate, but we gotta be realistic. We gotta start addressing things for what they are, right?
Exactly,
it's the little league. It's right on the bottom pile. There is New York, but it's at an advantage right now because it has such a diverse, rich people from different areas, right? And the culture also is self-expression a lot more, right? Thrifting, it really just feeds into the sustainability aspect of what we're all trying to achieve in fashion. If we can just find a true identity of what it is to be sustainable, right? Berlin Fashion Week can be the outlier. We can model the other countries or other fashion. We can model what we do here and start introducing it in their shows, right? And let it not just be a dress-up game where we all show up for the event and then after that we go back to our life, right? Let it not just be me sit here and just go, bala, bala, bala. Oh, that sounded smart, right? And then I get good coverage, I get some whatever, and then that's the end of it, right? We need to start realizing talking is not just enough. It's really not enough, right? You need to start listening and then acting. But to take this role that to participate and get a medal, I don't even do that to my son. Like, he goes, Dad, no, you just, I might be a little bit too tough, right? But we can't just participate. We need the people out there that are doing amazing things, right? And we look to them. We want to be the same people. We should be the same people. We should aspire to have more, to do better, not just show up. This can't be enough. This really can't be enough. It cannot be enough. We sit, we chat, publicize, great talk, yippee-doo!
But what is it, when talking about Berlin Fashion Week, what is it that should really change to make it something that is not about, because I have the feeling also we talked a lot the last couple of days, but we haven't seen that much yet. What is it that has to change about Berlin Fashion Week?
Money needs to be put in the right solutions, right? Don't let it be like what we've been doing with their organization. Don't let it be a supporting act. Don't let it be a curtain raiser. Don't hide us in the trenches. Don't put us away, right? We are the solution. We want to provide the solution. Until everybody, excuse my English, fuck up everything, you will look to us for solution, right? But right now what's happening is all they'll do is benchmark on the fact that they are inclusive, trending word again, trending topic, right? They are being inclusive in bringing us into the crew, but they're going, yeah, you're part of Fashion Week, but over there, right? No, that's not a solution. We are the solution. We are the creators. We are the designers. She is an expert at what she does, right? But it can't just be that she comes here and we sit and then there's just a conversation over 2 days, but the people that are actually great at what they're doing are in the background. And then, because we're still selling the same formula, we're still really doing the same thing as everybody else are doing, right? Selling that luxury that still existed before. There's other designers in there. There's other designers that are being sold, overly sold, right? They need, with the overcorrection, this is the only time they actually think there should be an extreme overcorrection. Put the people with solutions, put money in them, put them together with better industry, engineering, whatnot, let them come together, put money in the right people, and not like, this is like, otherwise we're just doing like, what is it, Halloween over 5 days, right? We're all playing dress up. We really are playing dress up, and then the solutions are like, yeah. But that's just how I feel.
But what do you think, Waridi? Do you also think it needs, because what I'm listening out of that is that there has to be a change of hierarchy as well. Do you think that is something that especially here on Berlin Fashion Week has to happen?
I mean, back to also what you mentioned is about working with the solution, and that's also why with Africa, going back to the other questions altogether, you've talked, Africans works with solutions, and that's why even where there's sustainability, we never use that word, because we are working with solutions. And me also thinking about Berlin being here for, I don't know, is it the 14 years of Berlin Fashion Week? You know, it's not even seen as part of calendar Paris, New York, London, and in that way, it's okay. It should be its own fashion week, and like Dennis said, another structure where it's basically not marketing and PR. You know, African designers says, oh, Waridi, bring us to the German market because they want to sell. I said, you don't sell in Berlin. It's marketing, and I can give you visibility, but you're not going to sell. Nobody's going to even order anything. And this has been now going for 10 years. Even the young German designers are suffering as much as African designers. So there has to be a change and a different structure, you know, now. Frankfurt, Düsseldorf, Munich. It's like Africa too, when we have a fashion week. Let's talk about Kenya, because I'm from Kenya. You have Nairobi Fashion Week, Naivasha Fashion Week, different 5 towns Fashion Week. In the end, who is doing what? And this is what's happening in Germany, basically. There is no base, there is no ground, and it's waste of money. Take care of people. Invest in people. Invest in Germany itself. Yeah.
I just looked at the watch, and we came pretty far already. But I still want to ask you the last question that I want to ask each and one of you. But I'm asking to you to maybe answer it briefly, because I still want to give a chance to the audience to maybe ask a couple of questions. The questions that I would ask all of you, and maybe Orsola wants to begin at the far end of the stage, is how or why are you still hopeful for something to really change in the industry drastically due to, or despite of all odds?
Because it's all we've got.
Hope, you mean?
Yeah. That's a simple, beautiful answer. I would have said the same.
Shall I even ask the other ones still, or is that kind of...
Well, don't ask me that, but that's how I feel.
What was the question again?
What do you think, Sascha?
Yeah, I think kind of the same. And yeah, as I said, you have to change yourself or be comfortable with yourself, and then, I mean, if everyone has this kind of feeling and is in herself, then yeah, I think that's the main point.
And Waridi, what makes you still looking hopeful into the future?
Changing our mindset. We are all starting to speak the same language, whether in Africa or Europe, and this is bringing us together. So the future is together, being together and collaborating and understanding each other.
And you're hopeful that it really will happen, and we're all coming together in a healthy way?
It's back to being African. It's about now, and making now happen. Then the future will be what it is, and we are at now making things happen, changing people's mind, like the way we are sitting here talking about that. And this is to continue for now. It's continuation. Let's continue what we are doing.
Is there something you want to add when it comes to hope?
Yeah, but the only constant thing in life is change. Let's not be the cowards and let time dictate when we change, when we can influence now. I'm hopeful, but let's be deliberate and change. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you all of you for your answers and for taking the time. And as I said, it's quite late already, but I would still want to open the conversation. If somebody of you has a question, then please feel free to ask now, over there.
Hi, thanks for the talk. And I have a question because we had that conversation a couple of days ago. Would you agree that we also have to reconsider how we define growth and success? Because everybody talks about growth in a very capitalistic way, saying growth means getting more money, getting more employees, having a bigger company. But can't growth also be being more beneficial to the system that you're profiting of? Nurturing your employees, even if it's only 5, being a better employee. So defining growth more of being good and generous and doing a good thing than rather turning it into benchmarks and money. Maybe that's a start.
Well, yesterday I was on a talk and I was asked if there was something that could redefine fashion, what would it be? And I think for me it's the concept of kindness. We do need to rebrand the entirety of the fashion industry, which has been deliberately very opaque, very exclusive and very unkind, into a kind industry. And I mean, I am really interested in history, and I can tell you that size isn't everything. I mean, it can be something, dinosaurs, but then when they left, in came the mammals. So we have to experiment with different ways of size, and absolutely we need to experiment with different ways of success. You know, I don't like the competition where there is the one winner. It's all about what everybody can bring to the table. Help, for instance. At the moment, we are working with a wonderful cohort of designers, including 4 from Ukraine. And, you know, the help is mutual, I hope, that, you know, there is something that we give, but there is also so much that we take. So it needs to be redefined, absolutely, as you say. And potentially the only growth that I would like to see is bigger hearts.
Yeah, I would also say, I mean, success for me is not money or something. It's more like to learn and to learn from each other too. So, I mean, we are not a huge company. I mean, 2 years ago we were like 7 people. And for example, we did maybe like 1 or 2 projects more per month. But at one point, we talked also about it before, at one point, because I founded this company, and at the end, okay, we needed more project. I had to do more paper shit. And at one point I said, no, that's not my way of living. I don't want, what's my thing? I don't want to have a company with like 100 people or something, because I want to do my things. And try to show this kind of message. And I think that's more success, to learn and to grow for yourself, and have maybe a bit more time to read, to go some step further, and not repeating all the thing you do every year to show up on the next fashion week or show up there. So maybe do a break and reflect also, and think about this and not how we're going to sell best and again. And actually, it's just a copy from last year. Just this year it's blue and not red, or yeah.
So a lot, yet again, that has to change in the mindset of each and every one of us.
Yeah, I mean, but it was also a different time. I mean, it started with the industrialization, mass production, and I mean, at that point, people were, or for example, in Europe, were poor, and they wanted to produce more. But now we are in a different way. It's not good to produce this amount of products. So that's the thing where we have to go back again and think about our behavior and. Yeah.
Can I answer that? Yeah. Said success, right? I think because success, growth also. It's Oh, I thought success.
It's
Growth.
growing.
Well, there are no comments. I worked it all up. Sorry.
No.
And of course, not only talking about it, but coming into action. And yeah, I think that's a good send for the end of it. Thank you so much for being my guest today. Thank you for being our guests as well. And have a nice fashion week. That's still the rest of it.
Too.
Thank you.
Thank you for your insightful questions too.